Archaeologists must look elsewhere for evidence of Solomon's reign. They turn to the three royal cities noted in the Bible as being built by King Solomon.
This is an account of the forced labor which King Solomon levied in order to build Hatzor, Megiddo, Gezer, all his cities for chariots and for horses.
The search begins on June 14, 1902, when 21-year-old Robert Alexander Stewart McAllister opens excavations at the ancient city of Gezer. Working the site continuously for 7 years, the Irishman makes numerous fascinating discoveries.
One of McAllister's major finds was a large complex on the south side of the mound, which he understood as a palace belonging to the Maccabean rulers Simon Maccabeus in the 2nd century, one of the Hasmoneans.
Yet for all the impressive structures he uncovers at Gezer, McAllister finds none that he can directly attribute to the time of Solomon. With the disappointment of Gezer still heavy in the air, archaeologists shift their hopes to the second Solomonic city, Megiddo.
Megiddo was the cradle of the archaeology of this country. It is the site which is mentioned, the only site in Israel, which is mentioned in all great archives of the ancient Near East, Assyrian, Egyptian, Hittite, and of course in the Bible, above all, and many times in the Bible. So this is the reason why it is so important.
Starting in 1925, the Oriental Institute of the University of Chicago begins a 14-year dig at Megiddo, hoping to uncover proof of the reign of Solomon.
They excavated the famous Megiddo stables at a time, and they identified them as stables, first of all, and dated them to the time of Solomon because of several verses in the Bible, which, first of all, mention construction of Solomon at Megiddo, and secondly, mention the fact that Solomon had many horses. So they combined the verses and then identified the stables as belonging to Solomon.
Near the stables, the Chicago researchers make their most exciting finds: city walls and a unique heavy tower gate and guardhouse, which they ascribe to the building boom of Solomon.
And from the very beginning, they always tried to find a way to pinpoint the biblical material into the ground, so to speak, into the strata at Megiddo.
With much anticipation, attention turns to the final city of Solomon's biblical building boom, Hatzor. By 1955, all of Israel is abuzz with archaeological frenzy. One of King Solomon's royal cities has recently been identified at Megiddo, and the largest Israeli excavation ever undertaken is about to begin on its sister site, Hatzor.
The king of Hatzor is called, in the Bible, the king of Canaan, which means he is actually the king of this city, but he is so important, or the city is so important, that he is the king of the entire country, the king of Canaan. It is, if you want, a Los Angeles, a Paris, a London of those days. So it's a jewel of a site.
Yigael Yadin opens excavations at the site of the ancient city of Hatzor in the summer of 1955. Hoping to find ruins from the reign of King Solomon, Yadin is excited when he uncovers a city wall similar to the one found at Megiddo. When excavators reach the end of the wall, Yadin confidently stakes out an outline on the ground based on the Megiddo gate and tells his excavators to dig there. To their amazement, as they dig down, the gate appears exactly where Yadin had marked.
He knew the shape of the gate of Megiddo, and he was convinced that the gate here at Hatzor will look exactly like the one in Megiddo. So he more or less plotted it on the ground, and the workers were amazed, and were very religious people they were, that indeed it turned out more or less to be according to the one at Megiddo.
Noting their distinctive architecture, Yadin labels the twin structures of Hatzor and Megiddo as 6-chambered gates. Abundant pottery remains at Hatzor fuel Yadin's confidence to date the Hatzor gate to the 10th century BC, the biblical reign of King Solomon.
city gate and wall. Here they are. Okay? So this is...
Archaeologist Amnon Ben-Tor was a student under Yadin at the Hatzor digs and helped to date the six-chambered gate.
Now, I don't care if it is Solomon who built it or if it is Franz Josef who built it. This is now not the question. As an archaeologist, I have to date the gate, and I date it to the 10th century. Only then we open the Bible, and we should say, is there a story or is there something that can be correlated with this? And since I have a story that a certain king, whose name was Solomon, that he built the gate of Hatzor, I have the correlation here. And now I think the burden of proof is on somebody who would like to say that this is not so.
Despite Yadin's excitement, however, one thing continues to bother him. If the biblical narrative is correct, why wasn't a similar structure found at Gezer? To answer that question, Yadin tracks down the original report made by Robert McAllister during his 1912 excavation of Gezer.
And there he saw the plan of his so-called Maccabean castle and recognized that if you added the other half to the structure, you would have a gate almost identical to the ones at Hatzor and Megiddo.
Yadin is shocked. Because McAllister did not accurately use pottery remains to date the site, he had misidentified the city gate as a Maccabean castle.
And Yadin thought that was one of the great archaeological triumphs of his career, to recognize on paper the Solomonic gate at Gezer.
Yadin boasts to the world.
There is no example in the history of archaeology where a passage helped so much in identifying and dating structures. Our decision to attribute that layer to Solomon was based primarily on the one king's passage, the stratigraphy, and the pottery.
The archaeological community is so confident of Yadin's conclusions that they accept the three cities as type sites. Pottery found near the Solomonic gates becomes the accepted standard for the 10th century BC, against which all other sites can be compared and dated.